It started with a vision for how the internet should work, how it could work.
It really should be possible for anyone to just kind of wave their hand and carve out a piece of cyberspace and create a world of their own.
But the technology to achieve such a vision simply did not exist.
There's no way that you can have really high throughput and also have all these security and fairness properties. I was able to convince myself it's not possible. And I set it aside, and it would come back and haunt me. And it would keep nagging at me. And so I would pick it up again and set it aside again. And this kept going for years.
3 years later, Leemon had a breakthrough, the Hashgraph consensus algorithm.
Wait a second. If we're all just talking to each other, and you include a tiny bit of extra information, we could each end up with a complete history of exactly how we talked to each other in what order. I would know so much that I could take one of those huge, impractical, impossible, too slow voting algorithms and do it with no votes at all. I know how you would vote, so don't bother voting. Don't tell me your vote, I know it. And it gives us this entire history. The history is called a Hashgraph.
In 2015, Mance and Leemon founded Swirls to battle test the algorithm in permissioned environments. And the following year, Leemon published the technical paper. Then in 2017, Hashgraph was introduced to the world.
We've just come out of stealth. Hashgraph is the future of blockchain tech.
But to realize a fairer, more secure digital future for all, where the internet belongs to you, the world needed a trust layer of the internet, a public ledger built on Hashgraph.
I'm pleased to introduce you to Hedera. It is a public Hashgraph network with a world-class governing council.
This is it. We are about to launch the Hedera mainnet and mint 50 billion HBARs. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right.
That's it. Congratulations.
Yep. Mainnet is live. We've just wrapped up our first 8-city global decentralized hackathon. This is called an HBAR. This is our symbol that we believe is going to change the world. We're very excited to be here in Seoul. I'm very proud to be able to announce the first set of council members.
We're talking about the Hedera Consensus Service. This is a new service. Okay, it looks like we are down to the final seconds here.
3, 2, 1. Open access.
The network is open. As of this moment, we have council member nodes online, ready to take transactions from anyone, anywhere in the world.
We saw exponential growth on the network, surpassing the daily transaction volume of Ethereum in just 9 months. We welcomed new council members and watched dozens of game-changing applications be deployed on Hedera. And last year, Hedera brought the token service to mainnet, enabling users to tokenize any asset. Hedera's council grew to 25 members, and they voted to fund the industry's largest ecosystem by far, with 20% of Treasury, and establish the HBAR Foundation. Thank you for joining Hedera on this journey. Hello, future.
Hello, world. Hello, future, and hello, community. Thank you so much for joining us all today. I know a lot of you read our announcement last week. We are excited to share with you more details of that. So today we're going to walk through a little bit about some of the decisions that the council made and why they made those decisions. We'll then go through the what, the why, and the how of what Swirls is going to do. And we will close out with a deep dive into Leemon's vision for shared worlds. So thank you for joining us. We know for some of you, it's early morning. For some of you, it's midday. For some of you, it's probably middle of the night. And we always so appreciate our global community. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Brett McDowell, who is the new chair of the Hedera Governing Council.
Thank you, Zenobia. And I want to start by thanking Mance and Leemon, who you're going to hear a lot more from in a few minutes about how the news from last week is really going to play out in the real world. for inviting me along on this project. I was able to join Hedera Hashgraph about 3 years ago, and it's really been an honor and privilege to help put the council together, work with each of the new members as they joined over time, and bring us to the point where we are now, where we really are prepared to take this next phase in the future of governing the Hedera network. So now I'm here to talk more about what this major milestone was that we announced last week and why these changes are happening. So decentralization has always been the plan of the project. And as you've probably heard said many times, you can't launch at scale. So there's always a bootstrapping phase with all of these grand decentralized technology projects. So at Hedera, what we're looking at here is decentralization of decision-making, decentralization of the node operations, who's operating those nodes, and decentralized management of the treasury. So those are the core components, what we're talking about decentralization. And to give you a little taste of the excitement on the council for this next step, what we're calling the next phase of the governance at Hedera, one of our council members, Paolo Tasca, here, really excited, giving a supportive quote around the importance of open sourcing the consensus layer and these next steps we're taking in decentralized governance. So what did we really announce last week and why? What was the motivation behind it? This is a question that's been coming up throughout the last few days. So I'm here to tell you more about how those deliberations went with council members and what's kind of behind all these changes. So first, we met, and on December 21st was the meeting where these proposals that have been developed over weeks and months came to the table before the council, and they made final decisions. And you'll be able to read the formal meeting minutes of that meeting as we publish those minutes on the public website, as we always do. So the first part of the proposals that was approved is to reorganize operations and to further decentralize operations. So some of the key components of this: dissolving the office of CEO and CTO. So why is that important? When you're bootstrapping, there's a great benefit in having that level of centralized delegated authority from the council. But as we are now taking next steps, it's time for the council members to be more directly involved. And so the decisions that we might normally accustom in the office of the CEO are going to be made by the board or teams that they delegate. And decisions that would normally be made in the office of the CTO are going to be made by our technical committees, where Leemon Baird will continue to be co-chair and driving that vision forward. So with that, co-founders are going to be moving over to Swirlds and taking the product management, development, and the developer marketing teams with them. So the whole development apparatus is going to be outsourced. This helps on many levels. It helps with, frankly, cash flow. We'll be funding all of this with our cryptocurrency treasury. It also helps with decentralization of who can participate. As you know, we have the Hedera Improvement Program, and that's open. And as we open source all the technology, more contributors and more developers are going to be invited to make contributions to the code base. So this is all being opened up, decentralized, and distributed. We're going to be removing all the special rights that were set up for Swirlds as the founding member that helped bootstrap the project, other than their permanent council seat. So Swirlds will always be there as a permanent council member, but things like having a permanent seat on the board or having other certain rights about appointing the council members, the membership that we have on the council today is prepared to take over those decisions and those roles. In addition to that, we're going to be expanding the board from the council members. So some of the board seats had been allocated specifically to executive positions, and now those seats are going to be elected. So all of the board seats will soon be elected. In fact, all leadership positions in Hedera are about to be elected positions. So we're going through that process in the background now. The next major component that was reviewed and approved on the 21st was the purchase of the Hashgraph technology so that that technology can be open sourced. So here, as you saw in Paolo's supportive quote, there's a lot of excitement around open sourcing the full stack of technology. Again, it opens things up. It opens up the process, it opens up who can contribute to the code, and it opens up how it can be used. You're going to hear a lot more about the real world applications that are going to be accelerated through open source from both Mance and Leemon in a few minutes. The other major component is to increase and foster council member engagement. So basically all the council members, they have the certain, what I'd call the baseline commitment to the network and baseline opportunity for themselves in terms of benefiting from being on the council. All of that's getting enhanced. So with this new program that was recently approved, now council members who go above and beyond can receive benefits, direct benefits for that and incentives for that, compensating them for their time and their talent to take Hedera to the next level. We also have a program where they're going to be able to allocate and second headcount to Hedera from their company. And that's something that the council overall will be leveraging its treasury to underwrite. So this is going to greatly enhance and expand the number of people per council member that we expect to be involved in day-to-day operations at Hedera. And the last major component of the proposals that were presented and approved on the 21st were related to treasury management, right? We talked about the technology side of it. We talked about how to get council to the next level of decentralized decision-making, and then treasury management. So what happened before is that the central executive team put in place some treasury management policies. Now we have a compliance office, we have Office of the General Counsel, and they put some policies in place. The members have gotten more involved and more comfortable with the lay of the land in spite of all the regulatory ambiguity, especially in the US jurisdiction, and have decided to move some things forward and approve new treasury management policies that enable not only the council, but the council's partners and collaborators to deploy that treasury more effectively and sooner than later. So part of that is setting HBAR distribution policy for a set of approved categories. And what that's done is it's enabled the HBAR Foundation, our friends over at the HBAR Foundation, they are now going to be able to deploy what's now their HBAR treasury more effectively and quicker than they would have prior to this December 21st meeting of the council. So those are the main components of what was proposed and why it was proposed. You're going to hear more about, again, kind of the application, like what comes of this. For my part, I'm very excited about this next phase, really encouraged by the initiative that the members have been taking, and we're going to have a lot to report back to all of you soon. But with that, let me wrap up and turn it back to Zenobia.
Thank you, Brett. It's so great to see the council so engaged, and we look forward to hearing more from council members. I had the opportunity to speak with Cy, who is the new co-chair of TechCom alongside Leemon. Cy shared with us a few thoughts on the last week's announcements.
So I'm currently associated with WorldPay's Crypto and Emerging Business team as Chief Technology Advisor, and I'm also co-chair for Hedera's Technology Steering and Product Committee. And this move for open sourcing Hedera's Hashgraph platform is going to broaden the community participation, and it also going to expand the number of contributors. And also it will build and deploy decentralized application anywhere by and anyone in the world. It will also enable the collaboratively produced and freely published and developed for the good of the community.
All right, thank you, Cy. And with that, we're going to shift to talking about the what, the why, and the how of what Swirlds will do. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Mance.
Thanks, Zenobia, and hello, everyone out there in the community. It's great to be back with you again. I'd like to take just a few moments to talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it right now, and how we anticipate this will drive usage of the network. As Brett mentioned, we're doing two major things. One, we're decentralizing operations of Hedera, and we're open sourcing the code base. This means that marketing, product, engineering, portions of legal, finance, and HR are all moving over to Swirlds. Hedera will change its model for software development from being primarily in-house to now member and community developed, and Swirlds will have a contract with Hedera to initially provide those services. Now, Swirlds has not been the only member of the community building software for Hedera, although Swirlds has built a major component of that software. Now, the community all the software is going to be done in the community through Swirlds and other parties as well. So why now? It has everything to do with both platform maturity and market maturity. We've been building the Hedera platform for years, and we're now approaching version 1 of that solution. Over that period, we've had the opportunity to work directly with a large number of enterprises and organizations that have expressed interest in using the Hedera platform. When we consider the life cycle of technologies in general, it starts with the tech enthusiasts that are operating on the bleeding edge of the market. And as the market matures, we see then early adopters, and then the early majority of users follows that. While we as a team and you as a community are the innovators, we created the technology. We now clearly are seeing the early adopters of the platform. These early adopters are driving the network usage to date, and we anticipate that the usage will increase as many of these projects from the early adopters go to market. However, the next wave of growth is going to come from the early majority. And this particular group of users will need tools and services that make the adoption and use of the platform quicker and easier than what it has been for the earlier categories, the tech enthusiasts and the early adopters. These additional tools and services should be provided by the community, not by the layer 1 protocol itself. And it is in precisely this area that Swirlds is going to contribute as a community member to help the transition from the early adopters to the early majority. And the time to do that is now. Now, why are we opening the software, open sourcing the software? It has everything to do with interoperability. From the beginning, we've had a vision to enable the creation of many thousands of peer-to-peer distributed networks. You've heard us refer to them as shared worlds. And in fact, that's how we came up with the name Swirlds back in 2015. Each of these networks is self-contained, but has the capability to seamlessly integrate with all of the rest, including with Hedera. But to accelerate this vision, we decided to open source the Hedera code base. And now that we have technical controls in place, which are state proofs that ensure that the Hedera state can never be forked, and because we're at the point of completing version 1 of that code base, it is time to move on to the next phase of the strategy. Now, many have asked, rightly so, if we are afraid that others might take our source code and create other competing public ledgers. While that is technically possible, we clearly understand that the Hedera Governing Council provides best-in-class governance today, and the council will just continue to grow. But more importantly, by open sourcing the code base, we enable the creation of thousands of shared worlds, both public and private, that are all built using the Hedera code base. Each one of those shared worlds can instantly integrate with Hedera to use the Hedera services. We are not creating a walled garden in Hedera. Rather, we are enabling and promoting open standards for interledger integration. So thank you. And with that, Zenobia, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mance. It was great to hear a little bit more on the what, the why, and the how. And I know a lot of folks have been eagerly waiting to hear from Leemon. So with that, I will pass it over to Leemon to talk about his vision and a deep dive into shared worlds.
Well, thanks, Zenobia. And I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited for all of you to be listening. I appreciate you joining us because we are going to talk about the next step on our journey. Our journey so far has been exciting. We have seen a lot happen. And now we are at the next step where we can start really doing the shared worlds that we've been talking about. We have had a vision from the beginning. The official vision of Hedera has been a vision to enable shared worlds where anyone can gather, collaborate, conduct commerce, and control their own online footprint. So this has been our vision. This has been from the beginning, and we are at an exciting stage now where we can actually be doing this in ways that we haven't done before. This is what I want to talk to you about. So what does that actually mean? So you're a person, you're some user, you want to be able to create things, ideas, information, products or objects or markets. You want to be able to have trust in what you're creating and give other people the ability to truly trust what you're creating. And you want to be able to transfer things. You want to be able to broadcast to everyone something if you want to broadcast it. You want to be able to transfer it to just one person with payments. You want to be able to do all these things. And you want it to be easy and seamless and invisible in many cases. You just want the ability to work in the infosphere and control things and create things. So what do? You just kind of wave your hand and carve out a chunk of cyberspace where your information is, a document or something. And really, it's just on your hard drive. But then you want to be able to instantly invite friends. And so then they join. And now maybe automatically the software is downloaded to their computers, which is open source. So they're able to do that without asking permission. They just get it. And now the three of you are all in a shared world. You have a Hashgraph ledger and you are all contributing to it in real time, reaching consensus just with each other, where you are creating documents or playing games or starting to build something bigger. And it all has this fairness of consensus. It's all extremely fast. It's private and encrypted between you. And the three of you have just created a shared world. And all it is information sitting on your laptops, on the three laptops of you, or the three desktops, or your phones, or whatever. And then they can even invite more people. And so it can grow. And you can have rules that are enforced by the ledger itself, rules that say, there is one king that controls everything, or rules that say there is no king who controls everything, that the group as a whole, anyone can invite more people, or maybe the group as a whole have to vote on any new people coming in. Whatever. You set up the rules at the beginning, it's in the code, and then it's controlled that way. And then together you can build things that will be having these rules enforced. It's just like a mini Hedera. You can build your own little shared worlds using the same code base as Hedera. And then you can have these worlds. They can be something like a game. They can be something like cooperatively building engines for an aircraft, but they can also be things like a market. You can create markets together. You can create, a stock market or some kind of a financial institution, DeFi, or all these sorts of different things. Once you've created this, you have this shared world, you are not alone. Your shared world is in an infinite universe of other shared worlds. And you'll notice Hedera is there in the upper right corner. That's one of the shared worlds is Hedera, a gigantic public ledger that everyone trusts because of the council and because of its nature. But you also have all these little shared worlds. And maybe some of them are totally private and only a certain group of people can be in it and they're just interacting together. Maybe some of them are actually public services that the whole world can get into, but a few people are running it. And then the important thing is they're all connected to each other. Information you've created in one can be used in another. Things of value created in one can be used in another. Many of them will connect to Hedera. So if you want to have tokens and tokenize the information you're creating, or have tokens that you're trading and it's a market for tokens or an auction for tokens, the tokens can be minted on Hedera and you just access it through the token service. Or you access it through the smart contract service. So it lets you do interesting things with those tokens. Or maybe your little shared world, your game that you're playing, has a state, and you're periodically taking that state and putting a hash of it through Hedera, through the consensus service, to record it for eternity and immutably. You can do all sorts of things like this using the consensus service from Hedera, using the token service and the smart contract service. You might even have a little shared world you've created that's using Hashgraph, that's using our code base for free because it's open source, and you're providing a service to the world. And you might decide to allow people to pay for that service with HBARs, which are going to come from Hedera. And so you get this whole ecosystem. You can do things absolutely without Hedera, entirely on your own. Or you have this very easy way to connect to Hedera and use Hedera to give you the power. It's entirely up to you. You can do the equivalent of L2, layer 2 things from other ledgers. You can do that on top of Hedera. Or you can do Hedera app nets. App nets where you're using the consensus service to do all of your consensus, but you have other forms of things that you're doing in your group. All of these things are possible. Then there can even be further services that Swirls would offer where you can help remember your state for you. All sorts of things become possible. And it's all open source. It's everyone's doing this on their own. The ecosystem is just exploding exponentially, and you have control. That's what this is about. And everybody's interrelated. And we're all being able to talk to each other. And one player in that market is Hedera, which is fast, fair, and secure. And everyone can talk to Hedera, and everyone can talk to each other. We can use state proofs with each other because all that complicated state proof code is part of the open source code base. And so we have this way to talk to each other with state proofs that are being able to prove that what you're doing is truly the consensus of your shared world, of your swirled. And so Swirls is going to be involved in all of that. So this is what we're talking about. Now, how does that interrelate with Metaverse? What is the Metaverse? Well, everybody has a different definition of what the Metaverse is. But the Metaverse, I would say, is VR, virtual reality, on top of some shared information, some shared world that you are building on top of. And so you can have a VR interface to all this information that you are collaborating on in your shared world. You could have a little swirl and you can be doing collaborative information and have VR and let you all see it in that. It's especially good for games, but it's also for things like a bunch of engineers around the world jointly building aircraft engines and the wings and the body to design an aircraft. Hey, that can be VR, that can be a metaverse thing. And you can have all of these interrelating. And so you could have one three-dimensional universe, you see, that when you walk through a door, you're actually moving from one shared world to a different shared world, from one little network to a different little network, one swirl to another, all based on Hashgraph if you want. And it can interoperate with non-Hashgraph things too. So we as a humanity have a choice to make. What does this metaverse end up looking like? And there's really two directions we can go. We can have a metaverse that is a single centralized company, where that single centralized company is controlling everything. All of the data is on top of it, and everybody who is going to participate in the metaverse has to come through the door to that one company, which of course will be advertising controlled and will spy on you so that the advertising goes better. And we can do that. We can, as humanity, go to that kind of a view of a metaverse. Or we can go to a view of a metaverse where we are a million shared worlds, each little world that is shared by lots of people or by a few people, and then they interconnect with each other. And the metaverse allows you just to seamlessly go from one to the other. Just like the World Wide Web is now, it's even better because instead of a web page being controlled by one person, a shared world is shared between a group of people controlling it. And the rules are all enforced. And so this is the kind of future that we can be looking at. Shared worlds, and it isn't just Hashgraph shared worlds, it can be other shared worlds too will come along. And we can have standards for intercommunication, starting with state proofs, and other people can come along and do those too. They can come along and use these standards. And so this allows us then to have the better vision here. And I talked about standards. As going down this road, going with the open source, going with the standards for intercommunication, we can start driving standards. We can be part of standards organizations so that these are open standards with open source libraries controlling how do we all talk to each other. And we can have a world where we're all talking to each other through these things. We can have a world where instead of people spying on you with advertising, we just use micropayments to pay for things. We can have standards for how you pay for things with micropayments. And that works great if you're working with Hedera, where it's 1/100th of a cent to send someone some HBARs. That's the transaction fee is 1/100th of a cent. We can have that. And we can interoperate with other people if they become cheap as well. So we can have standards for micropayments. We can have standards for social. If you have a social medium where, say, you always send out short messages of a few hundred characters, this could be a standard that can work on these shared worlds, and you can have different shared worlds managing it. It doesn't have to all be one central company controlling it. Or if you have a standard where you can have information on your wall and people can post on your wall, this could be an open standard, and it could be living instead of on the servers of one central company that controls it. It could be living on 1 million shared worlds, and they're all interoperating with each other. You have ways that clients can get the information as it is spread across all the shared worlds. And we can be using Hedera with the consensus service to be making this easier, and it doesn't have any lock-in even to Hedera. It can be driving usage of Hedera, but as part of an ecosystem where everyone can be doing this with their own little tiny shared worlds. We can have even these different types of social media unified into single standards that can make them all interoperable with each other, even email and other things. And we can have other standards for things. This whole world that we're in of blockchain, this whole industry that we're in of decentralized distributed ledger technology, DLTs, all these things, we really need to grow up as a mature industry so that everyone can use us, so that your grandmother can use us. We need to be able to make sure that having tokens and transferring tokens and spending cryptocurrency is easy and invisible and fades back into the background, and grandma can do it and not worry about losing the keys or losing all the HBARs or the tokens. They don't have to worry about someone stealing all those things. So we can have standards for DREC, decentralized recovery, where grandma can have her keys stored in a way that it's not going to be stolen from her, but also in a way that she's not just going to lose it. And this is what we need. It needs to be so easy that anyone can do it without thinking about it. They don't have to be an expert in blockchain technology to even use this stuff. This is the world that we can be driving. And this is the world that you are building, many of you are building right now, and that we will continue to work with you to build a world where everyone is using ledgers, even without knowing it in their daily life, and where there is never a central company in control. It is always decentralized, just as Hedera decentralizes with our council. And with these shared worlds, we'll have lots of sources of information, all decentralized, all working together in standard ways with open source. This is the vision. We want to be leading into this interledger future, and we are looking to you to be building with us the future. And so thank you for being with us, and thank you for the things you have been building and the things that you are going to be building with us. We are going to do this together. Hello, future.